The Trump administration will be in China tomorrow to talk trade, but before that meeting, 1,100 economists are warning the president's trade policies may be pushing the world into a modern-day version of the Great Depression. An open letter signed by Nobel laureates and former presidential advisors quotes full passages from a similar letter sent to another president 88 years ago. Back then, economists warned against something called the Smoot-Hawley Act. May sound familiar because, yes, you have heard it before.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs.
That, of course, from the classic film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Actor Ben Stein was asked to improvise something from economics class that would bore the students to tears. And off the cuff, he turned to the Smoot-Hawley Act, which he explained to those bleary-eyed students did not work and plunged the U.S. deeper into the Depression. But its origin story is weirdly similar to the situation today. In 1928, the economy was thriving and the stock market was booming. There was one sector, though, that felt left behind, and that was farmers. They wanted protection from this new thing called manufacturing. So it became an election issue for the Republicans and their presidential candidate, Herbert Hoover. Reed Smoot was a senator from Utah, and Willis Hawley was a representative from Oregon. They started with tariffs on two agricultural products that were facing the most foreign competition at the time: wool and sugar. But industry after industry lined up asking for tariffs of their own. The eventual number ballooned to more than 800. And there were, of course, consequences to all of that. Other countries retaliated, including Canada, with a 233% tariff on eggs. American egg exports to Canada fell from almost 1 million dozen to 13,000 dozen. To be fair, Hawley-Smoot was in the works before the Great Depression, but it didn't pass until things had already started to go south. Now, as we mentioned, the letter sent to Trump was signed by a number of Nobel laureates. One of them is Robert Engel, professor of finance at the Stern School of Business at New York University, and he joins us now. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for doing this. What is your message to the president?
Well, my message to the president, I guess, is that he better be very careful about starting a kind of a trade war and raising tariffs and protectionist kind of economic policies are really a thing of the past. We've had, as you say, 88 years of reductions in tariffs, and to suddenly increase them again against our allies and trade representatives, it seems like madness.
Can you say how closely the situation today resembles that of 1929, specifically around that Smoot-Hawley? This notion that, well, gee, we should do something to protect this particular industry, and then it just balloons out of control, and it starts to spiral, and the consequences you may never have thought that come just peeling right into the situation. Well,
I don't think we're at as dangerous a place in our economy, but it's certainly, trade is a very important part of our business. We have so many multinational companies that are sourcing their supply from different parts of the world, and different amounts of production are being done here and abroad. If we start putting on tariffs, all these business arrangements are going to be disrupted. And I think there is a big concern by the financial sector and by the real economy that this would be very costly for everybody. And in fact, the financial markets have had a lot of turmoil over the last month as the tweets have come out suggesting one type of tariff or another.
There's one line in the letter that really stood out to me. It says, countries cannot permanently buy from us unless they are permitted to sell to us. We would urge our government to consider the bitterness which policy of higher tariffs would inevitably inject into our international relations. How does it feel that such a basic tenet of free and open trade needs to be laid out so plainly to an administration like this?
Well, it's interesting that they laid it out plainly 88 years ago, and I think it is actually very serious. I mean, and these are potentially just threats and trying to get a little better trade negotiation, and that's the best way, the best outcome. But I think potentially there will be miscalculations, and this will lead to repercussions and actually very negative impacts on the economy.
I wonder if you can tell me how the letter came about.
Economy.
It's 1,100 of the biggest and brightest names in the world of economics. To get that big a group together often takes a lot of work. How did this letter come together?
There were a couple of people that were sponsoring it, but I think basically the economics profession is pretty unanimous in its view that free trade and publicly open markets are the best way to do business. And I think it's easy to say that maybe we haven't accomplished that in our country, and many other countries may not have accomplished it so perfectly either. And so we have a long ways to go. But open markets and free trade is a pretty strong tenet of modern economics.
How do you feel in the wake of this letter as we wait for this meeting in China to begin? Are you optimistic? Are you nervous? What is your sense of the direction of things going into this?
Well, my expectation is that there will be a lot of bluster and possibly some compromises, and then it'll go away again. But that's an optimistic point of view. It could turn worse.
It could indeed, but I appreciate your optimism. Professor, thanks for making the time to speak with us today. Robert Engel, Professor of Finance at the Stern School of Business at New York University.